In every generation, there are people who help Christendom imagine what's next, not just in theory, but in practice. And Tyler Priebe is one of those voices. He leads Missional Labs, an incubator for missional impact, where new ideas are formed, leaders are equipped, and vision turns into impact. We wanted to hear from Tyler because he's not just talking about innovation, he's building environments where it actually happens, helping leaders experiment faithfully and translate imagination into real world mission. Tyler, so stoked to have you with us. Can you go back to the start? What first birthed Missional Labs?
Yeah, thanks, Ruben. It's an honor to be there. I wish I could be in the room. Really excited for everything that CV is doing and just to be a part of the larger conversation. I grew up um, in a world of missionaries, small town, Kansas, in the USA. But the one thing that we did have was a big vision for the world. I remember reading my great uncle's memoir that was sitting on my grandpa's desk, talking about his 40-year missionary journey in the Congo and all the places he went and all the things that he did. And we had a big what I call missional imagination. I had a sense of wanting to be a part of what God was doing in the world, wanting to join that, wanting to give my life to that, and a sense of permission and possibility that I could,
Hmm.
but I had no idea what that meant.
Was there a moment that you bit the bullet and thought, okay, we need to start Missional Labs? What was that moment?
Yeah, it was really COVID. Um, I had been pastoring and church planting in New York City alongside a really fun, dynamic church community right in the middle of Manhattan. And COVID hit. I got married. My wife and I kind of began to say, what does the next chapter look like for us? I started reading and got to know a guy named Alan Hirsch, which some of you might know, who's kind of a leading thinker on mission and the post-Christian world. And then I started reading this other guy named Ralph Winter, who maybe some of you know of or might not know of, but he was a guy that basically thought really deeply about mission, kind of in the second half of the 20th century. Really interesting guy, entrepreneurial, academic, interdisciplinary, all these different things. And I just remember thinking, oh, there's something in this vocational category here for me. I think there's some sort of school of mission, school of innovation, school of apostolic thing that needs to exist that doesn't quite exist yet. And to be honest, I was totally in the dark. I was like, what do I do? What am I doing? I'm kind of taking a leap of faith. And so one of the things that led to was beginning to get a sense, especially in New York City and post COVID, that there were a lot of people out there that were suddenly experimenting with new things for the kingdom. All this stuff was bubbling up. It was like things were changing. The old structures weren't what they used to be. And the spirit was like raising up a new generation of leaders and projects. And I was just like, where do they go? Where's the space for these projects? Right? These folks aren't going to go to seminary. These folks aren't going to go to a church planting program, probably. And I just began to really I feel like there's like a space missing to do the formation and the permission and the development of these kingdom ideas, these kingdom ventures in the earliest stages. And so really Missional Labs basically was me just tapping some of those folks on the shoulder and saying, hey, would you guys want to get into a learning environment and figure out how to like take seriously the thing that God is obviously leading you to do? And they were like, yeah, I'll do that. Sounds great. And so we started doing these cohorts, these incubator cohorts, and just trying to do everything from what is the mission of God to how do you grow in courageous leadership and face all of the emotional maturity and all the stuff that you got to deal with to how do you actually find product market fit for the thing that you're doing and take it from a bad idea to a less bad idea so that it actually has a chance. And we just started doing all that together in community, and it was awesome. And these new projects were coming out of it. And the next thing you know, the the foundations and the big ministries and all these sorts of things were like, wait a second, these projects are all really interesting. How can we connect with them? And so we started doing these like events where they would present their vision and present their model and present what they're doing to larger stakeholders and larger organizations. And I began to sense, I think there's something here. I think there's something here in the connection between the emerging and the established, and the permissioning of what might be next or might be possible, and
Mm,
the obvious hunger of the established generation to invest in the future and to make sure that they're handing the baton well to what the Holy Spirit's doing next.
yeah.
And so I just think we're living in this middle time and we needed better mechanisms to connect the dots between what God was raising up next and the resources that they need
Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
build meaningfully into the future. So that's it. That's what we did.
Well, I mean, the missional community, we are grateful for you taking the gap. I think that's an important space. Horizon 2 is often described as the messy middle, where early experiments meet real world constraints, where ideals, I guess, yeah, come out into the open. What are some of the challenges you see leaders facing between what is and what's next?
Okay, so if you have an idea, if you have a kingdom dream, what do you do with it? Right? You got to pay your bills, especially if you've got like, kids or a mortgage or something. Like, what do you do? Like, when do you take the leap of faith from a side project or a half-baked idea or a whatever and say, "No, no, no, this needs to exist. I need to go build this thing." Well, that's really hard. It's really hard, right? Because so maybe you go to a conference, you get hyped up, you go to a workshop, you get activated, you go to a hackathon, you get a prototype, but then you can live in the wilderness for years of that thing kind of being stuck or stalled out because you got to figure out how to get it through all of the different growth milestones and phases for it to get critical mass, have enough momentum. I mean, whether this is church planting or business or whatever, it's the same pattern. How do you get it from like nice idea to like a serious thing, like a serious venture that's going to grow? So there's this space in the middle where most ideas don't make it, right? And it's tough because most people put their heart and their sense of self and their sense of calling and their sense of identity into that, right? And so if you're going to make it through that phase, um, one, man, you better have a deep relationship with the Lord because you're going to be out in the wilderness for a minute. Like you're cutting down trees in the jungle, you know? And so it's a real journey of faith. It's a journey of risk. You're sort of going on this voyage. Like venture comes from the word adventure for what it's worth. And I think we put it in business language, but the heart of venture is you are like setting out on this quest. You're setting out on this voyage with the Lord. So it takes a real journey of faith. And so you have to like gear up for that. You got to get equipped for that. The second thing is you got to get really serious about your convictions and about your vision because nobody sees what you see. And so nobody sees what you see. So you have to go deeper into believing it yourself and wider into being able to communicate it clearly and compellingly and convincingly to the world, right? Nobody sees what you see. And so like even with this, it's been a 3 to 4 year journey of learning to take myself seriously. Not because it's about me, but it's about this thing that needs to exist and God has put it in my hands and I got to do something with it, right? So there's like a stewardship conviction thing. And then there's so two more things. One is you obviously have to learn uh what not to build, right? And this is the challenge is because your idea eventually touches reality, and reality is your friend always, but it's not always kind. And so you got to learn what to build and how to take your vision and weave it this way and that way until you can kind of like get it through the maze of reality into something that can actually survive and thrive. And then I think the thing that obviously is really critical to that is community, friendship.
Mm. Do you have any stories or examples of projects that have emerged in the last couple of years through Missional Labs or broader that just really give you hope?
So many. I mean, I get projects sent to me every day. And it's just amazing the creativity of what's being built, often kind of beyond our vision in some ways. So it's really cool to just see the and I think we obviously are moving into one of the most entrepreneurial ages in Christian history. And so we need frameworks for how to support entrepreneurialism in general. But all that to say is like I feel like it's so hopeful and the ministries and the movements that are going to shape the story of Christianity over the next generation haven't even been built yet. They're just getting started.
Yeah.
A project that a lot of people in the UK probably know of, Streams Studio, right? So Dave launched Streams, but what was cool about it is that where it came from was he had this list of people on his phone that he was praying for. And he was like, none of the content out there in the church is really speaking to this list of 30 people on my phone. Who's speaking to them? I guess I will. And he started putting these videos together with those 30 people in mind. And I love that because even in digital ministry, you have to still be incarnational. You have to name names. You have to know who the people are that you're trying to reach. Um, or I think about my buddy Philip out in the Bay Area in California, and they adopted a foster daughter, and it was so hard, and they didn't have any support. And most foster parents don't last more than a year. And he got this vision to help turn churches into communities of support for foster families. And he built that. And now he's got hundreds of churches that have been equipped to support foster families. And all the foster families that are in those churches last 4 times as long as regular foster families. And so my point in these stories is that it always comes out of the story and the thing God is doing and the pain and the lessons learned in the life of the person that starts it, right? It's never disconnected from your story. It's always connected to your story. And that's what's cool. So there's such a beautiful work to be done in helping ambitious entrepreneurially minded people or whatever go backwards and go deeper into their own life and their own story and say, what was God doing there? What was the thing that you didn't have that he wants you to go build for others, right? And to me that's so cool. I just love seeing that happen.
What shifts are you seeing culturally, spiritually, even technologically that we need to pay attention to?
There's all the obvious ones, of course, AI and technology and all that, political polarization, all that stuff. One thing that I don't hear people talking enough about is people's vocational imagination, right? Like what are the 21-year-olds in the world sitting around thinking about right now when they think about their future, right? Because ministry forms always end up being downstream of vocational forms. Like, here's what I mean. I In the age where everybody wanted to be a Fortune 500 CEO, you got mega churches, right? And in the age where everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur, you got church planting, right? Um, well, right now everybody wants to be Mr. Beast. They want to be a YouTube star. So what are the implications of that for mission and for ministry and for the kingdom, right? And how do we like take seriously some of these emerging ways that people are conceptualizing their careers? This is all going to change with AI. The way that we do learning, the way that we do personalized education, the way that we do it's all going to change. And so how people think about their careers and what to put their best work towards um, is going to really shape the story of Christian cultural engagement in the 21st century. So that's a really big one. Um, and I mean, I think there's so many things. I think there's obviously a growing spiritual hunger that we're seeing. This is the rise of Gen Z, all that stuff.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
and then of course, like, what are the ways that technology is forming and deforming us? Sometimes I love technology and I'm big on technology. I think sometimes technology begins to feel like the good news, and Jesus is the good news. Technology is not the good news, you
Great.
know. And so those, I mean, there's so much there, but I'm seeing so many trends happening that are going to shape our world, and we need handles for that.
Yeah, yeah. For the more established institutions, organizations, like what does it take to begin to die, let go, go again, open the gates for the emerging staff?
Okay, so great question. Innovation theory in general says that if you want innovation, if you're a company and you want innovation, you have to invest in loss. You have to you have to pursue creative destruction. Whatever the thing is that you're already really good at, you got to be willing to break that a little bit to move resources over to the thing that isn't good yet. And that's really scary and hard and never makes sense organizationally, right? And so you always start declining before like sooner than you think. And so you always have to begin investing in loss or investing in what's next sooner than you think. And so the simplest way I say this to churches, denominations, organizations, whatever, is you need a greenhouse. You need a greenhouse in your system. You need a space where new ideas and emerging models, paradigms, whatever, are given permission. You need a sandbox. Like, you need a place where those things can go and be developed and resourced and supported. And even if what comes out of it makes you nervous, you still need to create the space for it. You know what I mean? And if you don't have a greenhouse, you need one. as any, any church, any organization, like, you need to have a dedicated space where emerging leaders, emerging ideas, emerging technologies are asking what's possible, what's next, what would we do if we were starting over, how would we reach these people now? You got to have a space for that, and if you
Mm.
don't, um, I think that the environment around you will shift under your feet, and you'll be asking those questions, more and more.
Can you speak to the courage that takes?
Um, Investing in loss, I think, is profoundly spiritual, right? It's profoundly spiritual. The shape of our life and work and ministry should be cruciform. It's down, not up, right? Um, the founder's journey is not like becoming a unicorn and selling and crushing it. That's not the founder's journey. The founder's journey is, he made himself nothing and humbled himself to the form of a man. All to the point of death on a cross. Like, that's the founder's journey. People think of um apostolic as like, you know, the heroes. Well, apostolic just means your capacity to persevere and suffer, right? And so, but risk is so dynamic because that's so much of like, that's where the action is. Like, that's where the stuff is being worked out. And so I think that that's often where the Holy Spirit is too. And so the more we press into what John Tyson calls the redemptive edge, the more we find that Jesus and his spirit are there waiting for us, right? And so courage is learning how to risk. And then risk is funny because if you risk and lose, you don't want to risk again. And if you risk and win, then you also don't want to risk again, right? But the Christian life is risking and then re-risking and then re-risking and then re-risking. And whether it's in your marriage or in your work or in your whatever it is, so much of what the Holy Spirit does in us is it frees us up to go live creatively and courageously because we've already died to ourselves, we've already crucified our flesh, and we get to participate in this generative life of the kingdom. And I love this idea. A big thing I'm studying right now is this idea of generativity. The Holy the Trinity is like overflowing with creative possibility. It's like spilling over. And our churches and our ministries need to be places of generativity where things are spilling over, new life, new ideas, new projects. Like, it's just spilling. And then our own lives get to be places of generativity where the way we parent, the way we live, the creativity, the art, the work, all that stuff just kind of flows out of us because we're so free, right? And so for
Very good.
me, courage looks a lot like being a vessel of generativity that the spirit fills in and then beauty flows out. So
Wow.
that's the picture I have. That's what I want for people.
Yeah, I love it. In closing, what's your call to the missional practitioner, the technologist, the church leader as they look towards the future? What's your call to them?
Go deeper. Go deeper. Make sure that you're not building on a spirit of mammon, or that you're not building out of social pressure, or that you're not building out of selfish ambition. Go deeper. Like, dig all that stuff up. You can still be creative and courageous on the other side of being holy. Um, Dig that stuff up. Make space for the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the real innovator. Make space. Um, Build slow and steady. Most people think that they need to have it all built in 3 years. Um, you don't. You actually will. Yeah, I mean, go slow and steady. All the gains are later. The gains come later. You're going to work hard for 5 years. You're not going to see much. Slow and steady. The gains will come later. Um, and just, our task is to co-labor with God as He builds the kingdom. Right? Like, that's our task. So we're in a reciprocal relationship with God who's already at work, and so we get to be free to rest, free to Sabbath, free to work hard, free to create. Um, but don't ever lose your spirit of freedom.
Very good. I love it. Tyler, thank you so much. So much wisdom and experience in everything you've shared today. And we really appreciate the way that you and Missional Labs are helping the church navigate the next horizon with courage, creativity, and faith. It's been a blessing. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.